Hi, I'm Nathan Johnston, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate the PC3 serial configuration interface. Most operations are done through the PC3's Ethernet port, which would be IEC, TISO or web interface. However, to communicate via Ethernet, you're obviously going to need to know its IP configuration. This can be viewed and set through the serial configuration interface. To access the serial configuration interface, you'll need an RS-232 port, most likely from a USB to serial converter, given that most PCs no longer come with RS-232 ports. To make sure you know what serial port number it is, you can check the Windows Device Manager if you're unsure. You're also going to need an RS-232 cable, and you'll need to have a serial terminal program installed. Windows no longer comes with one. However, I have downloaded and installed Hyperterminal, but there are many available on the market, both free and licensed versions. So we need to configure the serial interface. On my PC, I'm using COM1. Now the serial configuration needed is 9600 bits per second baud rate, 8 data bits, no parity, 1 stop bit, and no flow control. We then need to connect a serial cable to the RS-232 port on the PC3 controller. We then need to turn on DC power, or if it's already on, you'll need to turn it off, then on again. And as it powers up, we need to repeatedly press the tilde key, which on a standard US English keyboard is the character to the left of 1 when combined with Shift key. And I've also got it shown over here. So I'm going to power on the controller now. And then the menu appears. You only have a short period of time before it will then exit the menu, so I'm just going to hit M for now. But before we go into looking at the details of changing the controller settings, just wanted to take a look at the information presented on the menu. It's showing us the current IP address of the controller. In this case, it is 10.1.6.1, and the subnet mask applied to this, as well as the default gateway. Another piece of important information shown on this screen is the kernel version. So now we'll look at change controller settings. I pressed M a little bit earlier so that we could keep this display. It then asks us to enter the root password. By default, this is NetSilicon with a capital N. We then get to specify whether we want to use DHCP or not. Now, DHCP is a dynamic allocation of addresses from a DHCP server. Very commonly used in IT networks. However, in control applications, static IP addresses are generally used. If the project does not require the PC3 to communicate to external Ethernet devices, then you can define whatever IP address you like. For convenience, you'd probably look to set it to something that's on your work's network. However, I recommend discussing this with your network administrator. If the project does require the PC3 to communicate to external Ethernet devices, then the IP address for the PC3 will be defined by the system designer. This may then mean you need to change the IP address of your PC so that you can communicate with the controller. So we can proceed through the different controller settings. When prompted for the different controller settings, the current setting is shown in the square brackets. And if you don't wish to change it, you can simply press enter, or you can enter in a new value. In this particular case, I might enter a new IP address of I'll just hit enter to keep the subnet mask as is. Same with the gateway address. Now you can actually change the baud rate used for the serial configuration interface. I'd recommend just keeping it at its default. You can also change the root password, which was the NetSilicon we used. Likewise, you can change the administrator password. And now our changes have been applied and the new IP address has been set. We can also change the time and date of the real-time clock from the serial configuration interface. This can also be set from your IEC TESO application. For example, you may be communicating with a train management system and receive a time from it that you need to synchronize to. You could write some code which sets this in your IEC TESO application. Alternatively, you can also set the time and date from web interface. The last option on the serial configuration interface is the option to erase the isograph application. This provides a recovery mechanism should your IEC TESO application be modifying the IP configuration and therefore stopping you communicate with it via Ethernet. It's a bit of a get out of jail card. The serial configuration interface and processes of using it are detailed in the processor module user manual. That covers all the options of the serial configuration interface. This interface is also described in the processor module user manuals.